Today, I'm really excited to have Meredith Kaminek here with me from central Pennsylvania. From her studio to a creek in the woods, Meredith has cultivated her career as a professional portrait photographer since 1992. Connecting with people and who they are, more than what they look like, has always been the true passion in her artistic eye. With a great connection to nature, Meredith has branched out to share her perspective of how everyday life and our natural surroundings are genuine gifts as long as we take the time to look at it that way. As I Found It is Meredith's recently published hardcover book, which is a collection of her photographs of nature, untouched, coupled with simple thoughts and inspirations. So hi Meredith, I'm really excited to hear all about your fine art photography adventures.
Hi, Nigel. Thank you for having me join you today.
Oh, it's fantastic. Today's topic is fine art photography and publishing your own book, which is really exciting. So let's jump right in. What was that first little spark that got you interested in photography and to start a business in the first place?
When I was a little girl, my mother took a black and white course at a local college, and I wanted to do what she was doing, so she bought me a 110 point and shoot. And I had been taking photographs ever since. I turned a hobby into a career and began photographing people 22 years ago.
Okay, so you've been photographing since 1992 and you've been doing portraits. What was it that made you move into the fine art business?
Well, I opened my own studio 17 years ago, and whenever I'm outdoors photographing families and children, I find things out in nature that you don't always see. And I have an affinity for nature, so I'm out there visiting waterfalls, frolicking in the fields, and I find wild things looking back at me or a neat pattern in the sky. And when I would be out marketing my portraits, I had made stationery that was blank with an envelope, and people went nuts over them. They bought a lot of them. And over time, I've been asked, why don't you write your inspirations inside? But that's a place where you write what you want to write. So I thought someday I'll do a book. And someday. So I had a friend named Michael, and he poked me in the shoulder over and over. So where's your book? And, oh, it's not a good time right now. I don't know how to begin all this. And so he kind of challenged me, and he said, why don't you do one prototype book? And I said, okay, when's it due? And he gave me 3 weeks.
Wow.
So, of course, I'm up for a challenge. And I coupled inspirations that I had written paragraphs and paragraphs, and I squeezed them all into one sentence per page. And I coupled them with the photography that I find out in nature. And the two of us sat for a day or so and put it together, and I made one book. So in my mind, to take a thought or an idea or a daydream and manifest it to reality, something tangible that you can hold and look through and share with others, had come true with that one book. So I had taken it to different friends, colleagues, business friends, and what do you think of this? What would you do differently? And two things. One was they wanted to hear the stories of where I found them. And the other was I had Mr. Tree as the author's portrait, and they wanted to see my face on there. So I did a lot of research and found that you have to be picked up by a publisher. You have to market yourself pretty much when you do find a publisher, because they don't market you. They put your book together, they do all the legal stuff, and then they put their mark on your binder so that they're the publisher, and it costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So I don't have thousands of dollars, and I wanted to manifest many books. So I looked into self-publishing. And there are self-publishers like Create Space and things like that that are publishers. You just do all the work yourself. And it's the same as if you went to a publisher. It's still thousands of dollars to manifest a bunch of books. So as I was researching a publisher or self-publishing, little things would light up, and they were the actual steps on how to publish a book. So I did it all on my own.
Wow, that must have been quite an undertaking, I would imagine, to do all of that. Can you break it down maybe into some of the steps that you had to take in order to get this book out? You said there was a lot of parts to the process, and a lot of this stuff is what these publishers will do for you, but of course it costs a lot of money. But you did a lot of this yourself. So what were the kind of basic steps, if you like, to go from having an idea for a book in your head to getting a printed copy in your hand?
First of all, you have to figure out what you want your book to look like and the feel of it and how you'd like to present it. One of the ways that I began was I took prints of the photographs that I had taken, and I took Post-it notes of the things that I wanted to say, and I laid them out on a table. And then from there, I didn't know how to use Photoshop, and I still really don't, but I learned how to put words on an image so that way I had an image of that as well. Then what I did was I looked around and did some shopping for a company that produces books. And I asked questions about size. I told them what I was looking for. I wanted it to be punchy in color. And I wanted a hardcover book, not a softcover book. After asking a lot of questions there, I took my life savings and I went for it. I had to learn, again, that black is not black. It's actually blue, which was awful for me because I took all this time to put the book together. And then I had to redo it, which is fine. You get walls like that. I registered it with the Library of Congress and got my ISBN. And when it was time to do the cover, I asked a friend of mine to help me because it's 2 panels plus the spine, and I don't know how to bracket that. So he helped me out that way, and I could slide in my images so that it looked correct, and it was correct to size. And when I was ready, I sent it in. I ordered 1,000 books, and a few weeks later, it was probably 5 weeks, I drove to State College, Pennsylvania, and picked up 600 and something pounds of books and was really excited to pick them up and have them. And then on the way home, I started to freak out because, yay, I have 1,000 books, but what do I do with them? So I unloaded them into the studio, and it took a lot of room because I never knew 1,000 books would take up that much room, a lot of boxes. And I decided to have a book release party, and I chose a local cafe. We took all the art down from the walls, and I put up my matted and framed art. A lot of them were images in the book, plus others that were not. And I had stationery and books and a lot of business cards and some albums of portraits and et cetera. And then I marketed it. I told people about it because nobody would ever know unless you say something. And that goes with everything. So I did some email marketing. I did Facebook marketing. I had paper print invitations that I plastered central Pennsylvania with. And on October 14th, 2010, had my release. And over 100 people came. It was awesome. It was like being at my own wake. My 3rd grade teacher was there, my doctor, some metaphysical people, my daughter's friends, some family, guys that I used to hang out with as a teenager. It was really weird mix of people. It was wonderful. And I had time to visit with everybody. I signed their book and had a little talk and said hello and hugged them. And it was a lot of fun. I did 17 book signings from then till the end of 2010 and sold just under 600 books.
That's incredible. And so you had 100 people turn up, and did they all buy a book?
Yeah, some bought few.
That's amazing.
It was wonderful.
So you published this book yourself. You drove all the way to State College, Pennsylvania. You picked up 1,000 copies of these books. You came home, and then you figured that, well, now I have all these books. Now I have to sell them. And rather than just wait for people to buy them, by throwing up a website online and trying to sell them online one by one, you actually were a bit more proactive about it and decided to have a proper book launch. And then you mentioned mentioned that you did 17 book signings. Now, normally when somebody launches a book, their publicists and that kind of thing will set up book signings. They'll do all the arrangements with bookstores and stuff like that. And it's like going on a tour, But how do you go about doing that yourself?
A publisher does not market your book. A publicist does. They cost money. I didn't have that. So I became my publicist. And I contacted art galleries, cafes, groups like that, and said, hey, I just published a book. I would love to do a book signing at your venue. Would that be okay with you? Yeah, sure. And so we would pick a date. And for each event, I would put out paper invitations, market it on Facebook, put it on my website, and then show up. I would be there and what's great is it's not just the book that was selling, my art is selling as well. So wherever I go, I bring the book, of course, but I bring matted and framed work or just matted and stationery. So if I'm somewhere that it's a book signing, then I bring my art. Or if I'm at an art gallery, I bring my book. They cross-market, and it makes things so much more broad, even though I'm there for one particular reason.
This is just great to hear you doing all this, because so many people, I think, would put themselves on a project like this to publish a book, and then they get the book there and they think, oh, well, that's it now. I've got my book published. I guess I'll just wait for people to buy it. But you really didn't let any of these obstacles stand in your way, in terms of things like, well, now I've got to have a launch, and now I've got to publicize my book and market it and all that kind of thing. You just jumped in there with both feet and did it yourself.
Yes.
What do you think stands in the way of a lot of people from doing those things?
Themselves. Seriously, you have to get out of your own way. You're the one that is holding yourself back from everything that you wish for. You have to decide exactly what you would like. Write down the steps of how you think you can get from your thought to your goal. Follow those steps, and sometimes you have to creatively go over a mountain or around a wall. And don't stop focusing on your goal. If you have to be creative to get there, then get there, but be thorough about it. It's about the journey. It's about the idea and getting to your goal. It's not just about the goal, but you can't say, I would love to do this, but. Well, if the but is I don't know how, if you had all the money in the world, all the time in the world, write the list of the steps that you think that you would take to get there, and you'll notice that a lot of it can be free or cheap or just a lot of time. And just take the time and chip away, chip away, chip away. It's not going to happen overnight, but it'll happen in time, as long as you take the time to do it.
Yeah. I mean, do you think there's a lot of fear involved as well with a lot of people? Did you feel any fear when you were doing this, and any kind of apprehensions, if you like, before you embarked on this process of, let's say, becoming your own publicist? Surely you must have thought that there were going to be difficulties with it. Yes,
I've had so many what am I doing moments. What am I doing, or how do I get there? But I love a challenge, so I have to stop with that thought and find the love in it and say to myself, okay, wait a minute, I'm doing this for a reason. So put that fear aside, step right through it, and keep trucking on, because fear is what's going to stop you. And I was never taught that you can't do anything specific. I was always nurtured saying, oh, that's cool, go for it. I've always been cheered on growing up, as an adult, even now. And there's absolutely nothing that you can't do so long as you take the time and put your mind to it and just do it.
I agree completely, but what I see happening is that someone decides that they want to do something, or they have a desire to do something, let's say publish a book, and they might get that far, and then they have a basement full of books, and so they decide, well, I've got to market these things, I've got to get out and maybe become my own publicist. But then the fear sets in. What if people say no? What if people don't like my book? What if I get some negative criticism? What if nobody turns up to the book signing? What if I don't sell any? How is that going to make me look? What are people going to think? People will think I failed at it. And those kind of things really hold us all back, when a lot of times those fears are simply nothing more than smoke and mirrors, really.
Exactly. There is no such thing as failure. If you decide to do an event, for example, let's say I'm going to do a book signing at an art gallery, and I do the marketing and I gather my things and everything's looking pretty, and I bring it over there and I decorate their gallery, and I buy donut holes and get some coffee and let everybody on Facebook know that I'm going to be there. And then that day, I show up and 3 people come in a 5-hour span. It's a success. Mm-hmm. It is a total success, because I took the steps of getting it together, marketing myself, making it look beautiful, bringing it there, cross-marketing with the gallery, and 3 people came. Even if nobody came, it was a success, because all the things that I did to get there, to be there for the day, is the journey, and that's what it's about. The people that would come is a bonus. You have to market what you do and be in the public to share your work so people can see a face with the work, get to know who you are. And that is the best way to do it, is creating events locally to you or even outside of your local area. People really like to connect with people. And when they see your work online, they think, wow, that's beautiful. And then maybe they'll come to one of your events. People are busy in their own lives. So if you only do one event and you only have 10 people come, yay, you had 10 people come. But if you do another event, then there'll be a different 10 people. Or sometimes you'll have somebody that goes to event to event to event. If you have them kind of close to each other, 1 a month, maybe 2 even, then you're out there and you're marketing yourself over and over and over so that people are seeing what you're doing, where you are, what's new. And I love hugging everybody. So whenever I market anybody, I always say the hugs are free. And a lot of times people will come just for a hug, and I love that. I absolutely adore that. So maybe they're not in the market for a piece of art or a book in that moment, but come a birthday, holidays, anniversary, when they need a gift that means something, they'll consider a piece of my art, or they'll consider a signed book personally to who they want to gift it to. That's when it's just wonderful, because they thought of you.
There are 2 things in there that you said that I think are quite important. The first one is the decision for you to consider these events as a success, regardless of how many people show up, is a direct result of the way you choose to measure the success of it. People, I think, will have an art opening or a book signing or whatever it happens to be, and they tend to measure the success of it by how many dollars they ended up with in their pocket at the end.
Right.
Would you say that by changing the way that you define the success for an event like this alters your whole sort of approach and perspective to it?
Yes, I completely agree. And that goes for anything in life, whether it's business or art or personal. If you target success with dollars in your head, then you're just reaching for the dollars, and they may not come. And every time that you put forth all that effort, you become disappointed. But that's not what it's about. It's about sharing your art. It's about meeting with community. It's about having people come and see your work, spend a little bit of time, get to know you. It is not all about dollars. And the more often that you're out there connecting with people, the more often they're more apt to come and pick something of yours as a gift or for themselves when they redecorate, because they liked you and they love your work. So success dollar-wise may not happen right away, but eventually a piece will definitely sell because they saw it at this cafe or at that theater or in this bookstore.
Right. And the other thing that I noticed in what you've been saying is that it's the personal lasting connection that you're creating with people, regardless of whether they buy something today or tomorrow or next week or next month. You're making a lasting impression on people by being genuine and by being authentic and by being very personable. And this is one of the big things that I think is a key factor in selling fine art photography particularly, is that people like to get to know who the artist is behind the work and resonate with that person before they'll invest in the photography or the art or whatever it is that they're selling. Because this is what I've heard from gallery owners everywhere, where I've been and I talk to gallery owners and ask them, what is it that you feel makes people buy a piece of art off the wall? And every single time they tell me, it's most often because they want to know more about the artist first, and then they get more emotionally invested in the artwork itself. Is that something that you found to be true as well?
Yes. It kind of goes both ways. When you see something visually that you love, of course you want to know the story about how it came to be. So when you have the artist there to explain the story, it kind of gives it an extra bit of flair. But also, if you know the artist and then you get to know their work, then you go and see more, or you click on Facebook or on the website to see what kind of new stuff is out there because you like the person they are. You like what they represent and want to see more of it. So it kind of goes both ways. You are representing your work when you're out there, and your work in your mind represents you because it's a part of you. But you really have to hold its hand and be with it so that others can connect with it as they connect with you.
Exactly. I want to switch gears just a little bit, still on the topic of selling fine art, but let's talk a little bit about selling fine art online on a website and that kind of thing. So the most common way to do it these days is for people to set up a website and showcase their images, and they have a page pop up with a photograph and a buy now button on there somewhere, and maybe some options of, the different kinds of sizes and whatever that they could buy. Do you think that's the best way of going about it? Because what I tend to hear from people is, well, I tried that and nobody bought anything.
Right. It is definitely smart to have a website and put your art online for it to be available to anybody that is surfing, looking at your work, because maybe they weren't able to be at an event or want to check out what you've been doing lately. And once in a while, you may sell something online that way. But personally, I found being out in the public, having art shows like last night, in a theater in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. I'm the artist for the next 3 weeks. I'm hanging on the wall. So I went for opening night, and I was there with my art. I don't know anybody there. So it was kind of cool to be there with my art, and they took my business card, asked me for a business card, and I noticed that there were some clicks on my website this morning, so I'm wondering if that was from there. You have to represent your art outside of online, because there are a gajillion artists online and even more websites that have art, and nobody knows who you are unless you're out there sharing it. You have to make some noise. Yeah, be with your art, make the noise, share it with the world. And if you put it online, there's just too many of them. It's saturated. You need to stand out. And the best way is to be yourself and share it in person, because then somebody may take your business card because you inspired them, or a piece of art really made them emotional, and they may not have the money right now, but they will in 2 weeks, but you're not anywhere in 2 weeks. So they'll go online and purchase a piece. You'll sell more pieces if you're out there with the public sharing your work.
Absolutely. I completely agree. That being accessible thing can really help too. If you make yourself accessible to people so that they can get to know you, I really think that can only help. And then you direct them from there to a website where they can see the work. But of course, they're looking at the work now through the eyes of somebody who has gotten to know the artist already a little bit, knows a little bit about the story, and isn't so concerned with the numbers, the sizes and the prices and that kind of thing.
Right. Besides that, it's kind of neat to know where your work is going, because if you sell a piece and you never see their face, you always wonder where it is and how they view it and how they appreciate it and what makes them connect with it, you know?
Yeah, and clearly you're a very social creature outside of the online world. You know, you're at events here and there and meeting people left and right, and I know that you go out and you do some talking and such like for different groups. What about online, though? I mean, are you a social creature online too, in social media? How does that play a part in what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty social. I'm very social. I love people. I love everyone, even those I've never met before. I just adore people. We are all snowflakes, and I appreciate the art of the individual people in everywhere. And so being outgoing and being myself online and making a remark about where I'm going to be with my art, or I photographed this today. I find a lot of hearts in nature, sometimes faces, and definitely a lot of four-leaf clovers. So when I'm out and about and I see one of these things, I'll photograph it and I'll put it up online, on Facebook mostly, and I get a gazillion feedback from it because it's a heart. Or I break for woolly bears, and here is a woolly bear caterpillar as a photograph, and then you have all the remarks about it, and that's so much fun. And I love to write back and have an online rapport, because to me, it's connecting, even though I'm not in the same space as they are in the same time, but it's definite communication or a connection. And it's always a laugh. It's always positive. I just enjoy people so much. What also is cool is when others find a heart in nature, whether it's a piece of chicken or a blob of cat litter or a wad of gum on the sidewalk, and they post it on my wall because they thought of me. So that is so cool, because being out there and connecting with them, for them to think of me when they found a heart, or say, I would never have seen this if it weren't for you, is just heartwarming. I love that. And I get so excited when I see those.
What you've done there is you've created a natural point of connection with people. Essentially, you've turned everyone that you come into contact with online on your Facebook page into heart collectors. And they're all out there hunting for these, whether they realize it or not. It's in the back of their mind, and they see something and they go, oh, who would like that? Meredith. And of course, they have this connection with you. And that can only help to further elevate what it is that you're doing, and further get people to know you and like you. And the longer that goes on, the more people will trust you as well. And therefore, they're much more likely to buy your book, buy your fine art, start collecting your stuff, almost ritually. Everything you put out, there'll be somebody who will come and collect it, as it were.
Not just that, but they also have their family's portrait taken, which I cross-market with everything too, or if they have a dog or grandchildren or whatever, and that is so much fun.
Absolutely. So as we finish up here, what do you see are the most common mistakes that fine art photographers make when they try to break into the fine art business?
They get a case of the what if and doubt themselves out of their idea. And I'm telling you, the idea is yours. It is up to you. So if you have this idea, it was given to you and it made you feel good, and it sparked how you feel passionately about what you love to do. And the only one talking you out of it or down from it is you. Get out of your own way. Write down a list of steps of how you feel that you can accomplish this if you had no roadblocks holding you back, and then do them one at a time. And have no expectations, no major deadlines. Just work on it until you create it. And then when you do, share it with the world.
It seems like such straightforward, easy advice, in the sense that just get out there, stop being afraid of everything, and just do it.
Yes. The last page in my book says, "It is only you who is holding on to everything you wish for. It is up to you to make a wish with loving intent and let it go."
Very wise words indeed. And, Stan Beecham, who I talked to recently on another podcast, said there's only one way to fail. Earlier on, you mentioned that failure is non-existent. And it is. I agree that there's no such thing as real true failure, except there is one way to fail, and that is to quit. If we decide to quit something because we assume that we failed because we haven't made a sale or because it's just not bringing in the money or whatever, then that's our decision not to stay in the game. But the game itself doesn't have failure built into it. It just has humps that we have to get over.
Right. And those humps are what spark new ideas to create more, do things differently, and find a different way so that you can sell more or you can connect with more people. That's just how it works. There is no failure. It's just a feedback that says, okay, try something else.
Fantastic. I've really enjoyed hearing the story of how you just started out with an idea to put a book out there, somebody out there prodding you constantly saying, Meredith, where's your book? Where's your book? Where's your book? To selling well over 1,000 copies of your book. I think you're into your second 1,000 run now, aren't you?
Yes, I'm at the end of my second 1,000. It's time for a new one.
That is incredible. There's a lot of books that are published by mainstream publishers who don't make it to that many copies sold.
And I would say the majority, the giant majority, were sold and signed in person. Very few were sold online out of that. Some were sold online, don't get me wrong. But the huge, vast majority, I signed in whatever their favorite color was with their name and had a nice little message and gave them a hug in person. A lot of artists are shy. A lot of artists find themselves within their art, but they're not so savvy with connecting with people. And that's a skill. It's something that you have to open yourself up to be somewhat vulnerable in person. You have to share your heart and your passion. And sometimes it's hard for us to do that. But when you're with your art, it's a lot easier because then you are talking about something you're so passionate about. It's not like you're making it up as you go. You're telling your true story. So it's not so hard to open up when you're shy, especially when you're talking about something that you love.
Absolutely right. Well, Meredith, thank you so much for sharing this amazing story with us. This has been fascinating, and I've really enjoyed discovering more about how you got these books out there, how they got started, and I think it's incredible that you've managed to sell so many copies by hustling and getting out there and meeting people and just being genuine and connecting with folks in a really authentic way. So thank you so much for being here and for sharing your expertise and inspiration and knowledge with the rest of us. I think some folks are going to go away from this feeling quite inspired to maybe have a go at this themselves and kind of get out of their own way, if you like, and actually give this a shot.
Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful.
Yeah, it's been great. You have a great day. Keep up the good work, and maybe we'll have you back on another time to talk about some more fine art stuff in more detail.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.